When a simple traffic stop turns into a career-defining moment, a police officer's worst assumptions collide with the truth he never saw coming. His target turns out to be the man who holds his future in his hands. The sun was slowly setting over the streets of Sacramento. It painted the evening sky with soft strokes of gold and orange. Eric Porter was driving home after a long and tiring day at work. His sedan moved smoothly along the road as he adjusted the air conditioning, hoping to relax after the day's stress. The radio played softly in the background, providing a calm escape from the dizzy city outside. As he approached the yellow traffic light, Eric slowed down and came to a stop just as it turned red. Then suddenly, blue and red lights flashed in his rearview mirror. The piercing sound of a police siren filled the air. Eric frowned slightly, looking behind him. He pulled over calmly to the side of the road and rolled down his window. A police cruiser parked just a few feet behind him. From it stepped Officer Bradley Larson, a man in his mid-30s with a buzz cut and a badge shining on his chest. Larson adjusted his belt and walked toward Eric's car with a confident stride. He carried the look of someone who was used to being in control. "License and registration," Larson said in a short, firm voice. There was authority in his tone, though it lacked warmth. Eric didn't argue. He quietly opened his glove compartment, took out his registration papers, and handed over his driver's license. His movements were calm and deliberate, but he could feel Larson's eyes fixed on him, examining him, almost searching for a reason to dig deeper. "Do you know why I stopped you?" Larson asked, leaning slightly toward the window. "I'm not completely sure," Eric replied politely, his tone even and respectful. "You didn't come to a full stop at the light," Larson said after a short pause. His voice wavered just slightly, as if uncertain. "I see. I thought I slowed down enough, but I understand." Larson didn't reply right away. He just stood there for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he studied Eric carefully. What had begun as a routine stop was starting to turn into something else. His body language changed, as if he had already decided that this situation meant more than just a minor traffic violation. He glanced down at the license again. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked. Eric hesitated only for a moment before replying. "I moved here a few months ago. The address is current." But Larson wasn't really paying attention to the answer. His tone began to change. The edge in his questions grew sharper, hinting that he was looking for trouble where there wasn't any. "Where were you headed in such a hurry?" Larson asked. "Just going home," Eric said calmly. His tone stayed steady, but the tension in the air was clear now. Larson wasn't just seeing him as another driver anymore. He was seeing him as something else, someone to question, someone to control. Eric sensed the shift, but kept his calm. Little did Larson know, that calm wasn't fear or naivete. It was control. Firm, deliberate control. Larson took a slow step back, folding Eric's documents and slipping them into his chest pocket with exaggerated care. Then he straightened up, his expression turning slightly smug, as if he had already made up his mind about the man sitting in front of him. "Step out of the car," Larson ordered. Eric's hands tightened briefly on the steering wheel, but his face stayed neutral. "Is there a reason for that, officer?" he asked quietly. Larson's mouth twitched, but he masked it quickly. "I told you to step out of the car. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The hidden threat in those words hung in the air. Eric let out a slow breath and opened the door. As he stepped out, Larson's eyes flicked over him quickly, sizing him up. Eric was slightly taller, his build solid but not intimidating. His dark suit looked professional. His polished shoes suggested order and precision, but none of that mattered to Larson. "Hands where I can see them," Larson said sharply. Eric complied, raising his hands calmly. "Is there something specific you're looking for?" Larson smirked faintly. "Just a routine check. We've had a few incidents around here. You can never be too careful." Eric turned slightly, meeting Larson's gaze. "Incidents involving men in business suits driving sedans? Or is this about something else?" The question landed heavily. For a moment, Larson's composure cracked. His hand brushed against his belt. "Watch your tone," he said coldly. "I'm only asking a question," Eric replied softly. His voice was steady, not defiant. It carried quiet strength that made Larson uneasy. Larson leaned closer, narrowing his eyes. "You seem familiar with how this works. Got something to hide?" Eric paused for a moment before answering. "No, officer. I just believe in being clear about the reason for a stop. Transparency, you know?" Larson scoffed, but didn't reply. He paced slowly in front of the car, frustrated. Eric's calmness was throwing him off balance. Most people would be nervous or defensive by now. But Eric wasn't. He was calm, composed, and completely in control. "You seem pretty confident," Larson muttered, "like you think you know what's going to happen next." "Confidence isn't the issue here, officer," Eric said quietly. "Respect is." Larson froze, his expression hardening. His mouth opened as if to argue, but no words came out. The silence stretched, heavy with tension. Larson tapped his fingers on his belt, his irritation building. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not like this. "Turn around and place your hands on the hood. I need to check for weapons," he ordered. Eric raised an eyebrow. "Weapons," he repeated softly. "Do I look like someone carrying one?" Larson's jaw clenched. "I'm not asking again." Eric turned without a word and placed his palms flat on the hood. Larson approached slowly, the crunch of his boots echoing on the pavement. His search was quick but rough, unnecessarily so. It wasn't just about safety. It was about control. But Eric didn't flinch. He stayed still, composed. "You're clean," he muttered, annoyed that he had found nothing. "Of course," Eric said evenly. "Now, officer, if you're done—" "I'm not done," he cut him off, his tone sharper. "You think you know a lot about what I can and can't do. Why's that? You a lawyer or something?" Eric smiled faintly. "Something like that." The vague answer seemed to frustrate Larson even more. He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "You think you're smarter than me? Think you can talk your way out of this?" "I don't think anything," Eric replied calmly. "I just believe in fairness, and I don't see much of that right now." Larson stiffened. "Fairness? You think this is about fairness? People like you always—" He stopped himself abruptly, realizing what he almost said. Eric's expression didn't change, but his voice did. "People like me," he repeated quietly. Larson's face paled slightly. "You know what I mean." "I think I do. And I think we both know this stopped being about a traffic light a long time ago." Larson opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The power had shifted. For the first time, Larson looked unsure. Then Eric spoke again, his voice calm and firm. "Officer, I think it's time you know who I am." "I don't care who you are," Larson said quickly, but his voice trembled slightly. Eric reached into his pocket slowly. "I'm reaching for my badge," he said clearly. "No need to overreact." Larson's hand moved slightly toward his holster, but he froze as Eric pulled out a small leather wallet and opened it. Inside was a polished badge. "Eric Porter," he said evenly. "Head of Internal Affairs, Sacramento Division." Larson stared, his face draining of color. His confidence disappeared. "You oversee," he started. "Yes," Eric interrupted gently. "I oversee officer conduct. My job is to make sure that people wearing this badge honor it with fairness, honesty, and respect." Larson's shoulders slumped. He looked at the badge again, then at Eric. "Here's what's going to happen," Eric said evenly. "You're going to step back, return my documents, and think very carefully about your next words." Larson hesitated, his jaw tightening. "And you'll be hearing from me again," Eric added, his tone lowering. "Not as a driver you stopped, but as the man who decides whether you're fit to wear that badge." Larson's face reddened. His hands trembled as he reached into his pocket and handed back the license and registration. Eric took them silently and returned to his car. Before getting in, he looked over his shoulder. "Remember this, Officer Larson," he said calmly. "The badge doesn't make you better than others. It makes you accountable to them." Eric got into his car and drove away, leaving Larson standing in silence, his confidence shattered. The drive home was quiet, but Eric's thoughts were heavy. This wasn't the first time he had faced something like this. But this time, he had the power to act. The next morning, Eric sat at his desk in the Internal Affairs office. A file sat open before him. Officer Bradley Larson. The record showed past complaints, minor misconduct, excessive stops, unprofessional behavior, all quiet.